Okay, guys. So please don't forget your cameras. And today we're gonna work on the writing section. We'll practice today. So let me see. We will be practicing the question that we did yesterday, the question that we learned yesterday, the second task of the new writing section. That's called writing for an academic discussion, if you guys remember. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna be practicing it. We will we're basically you guys are gonna write some responses and I'll be giving you some feedback. So let's see. Okay, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna send you the link for this presentation and I want you guys to open the presentation. Okay, this is writing for an academic. Okay, guys, so I just sent you the link. Please open the document. All right, guys. So we will be working on this question now. Let's first read the instructions. The instructions say, your professor is teaching a class on political science. Write a post responding to the professor's question. In your response, you should A, express and support your personal opinion, and B, make a contribution to the discussion in your own words. Now, they also say an effective response would contain at least 100 words. You have 10 minutes to complete the task. So, this is Dr. Jones. Let's see what he says. He says, today we're going to talk about the debate between economic growth and protecting the environment. Economic growth creates new jobs and gives people money that they can use to improve their lives. On the other hand, if we protect the environment, it can be enjoyed both by ourselves and future generations. Now, this is the question. If you had to choose between prioritizing economic growth or protecting the environment, which one would you pick? Why? Okay, so if you had to choose between prioritizing economic growth or protecting the environment, which one would you choose? Now, remember that for this question, you will always have the question, and then you have two sample responses from two of your classmates. So in this case, we have Susan's and Alex's response. So Paula, could you please read Susan's post?
Yes, I would prioritize the environment. We only have one planet and we don't take care of it. We won't have pleasant life in the future. Economic growth can be important, but not at the same, no, but not at the expense of the environment. I think we need to shift towards more environmentally friendly economic practices, such as investing in renewable energy and promoting environmentally friendly technology. We'll live much healthier lives if the world around us is clean.
Thank you so much, Paula. And well, Alex says, well, I agree with Alex. Well, in this case, it should be, well, I agree with Susan, right? I think they made a mistake. Well, I agree with Susan that environmental sustainability is important. I think that economic growth is the only way to solve many of the social and economic problems we face. We need a strong economy to create jobs, reduce poverty, and improve the standards of living. Not only that, but if companies grow stronger and more profitable, they might eventually develop new technologies that solve our environmental problems. So those are the two sample responses that we have from Alex and Susan. Now, what you guys are gonna do is you are gonna write your own response. You're gonna write your own post. You already have the template and the example that we worked on yesterday here in the same presentation. It's the first slide. So you have the example and you have the template here. You can use it. Try to use the template, actually. Try to follow this structure, those 7 elements we talked about. And what you have to do is write your post in the slide that contains your name. So Sofia, for example, you should be writing your post in this third slide. And Paula, you should be writing your post in the fourth one. Okay? You have access to the document. You should be able to type there. Do you guys have any questions? All right. Then these are the instructions. You have everything you need here. Now I will give you guys 10 minutes. You will have 10 minutes to write your posts. Okay? And then we will be reviewing. So please, you can begin now. If you have any questions, I'll be right here. Okay, guys, time's technically up, but I'm gonna give you 3 more minutes to correct everything, to finish, or to paste your responses if you guys haven't pasted them yet. Okay, guys. So let's see, let's take a look. All right, so I think Sophie is having some problems with her audio, so probably she wasn't able to listen to the instructions. In any case, I'm gonna be sending you guys another assignment right away for this question, so that you get to like write a response officially, send it to the mail, and receive it back with some feedback. But let's take a look at Paula's response. But before we start reading, what do you guys think of this task so far? When you were writing, what would you say was the most difficult part? Were you struggling with time? Were you struggling with vocabulary, with the template, the structure, with understanding the ideas, summarizing the ideas? What do you think? Or was everything okay?
I was having some trouble with the vocabulary and to write what I was thinking because my ideas were like too much. So I didn't know what to put, but then I eventually did.
Okay. So if you had too many ideas, did you have an outline before you start writing?
No, I just organize it on my mind and then write it down because I thought that the time would not be a lot.
Okay. So to be honest, I think that it's really important that you have an outline. It's not gonna take you more than 1 minute, I would say, but it's important to like think before you start writing. So decide your opinion and write down the reason, even if it's like 1 or 2 words that you're gonna write down. And that's gonna help you like have something to stay focused because these are really big topics, big ideas, and I know that you can write a lot about them, right? But having an outline is gonna maybe help you stay focused and also making sure that you're looking at the timer as you go, right? But I see that you were able to finish. So let's see what you have. So it says, I completely support Susan's opinion. Good. Besides the fact that we only have one planet and we need to have pleasant lives in the future. Perfect. So I really like the fact that you were able to understand Susan's main point. Because yes, it is true that Susan's main reason why she would prioritize environment is because we only have one planet. So you summarized it really well. And you also talked about the fact that she says that we need to have pleasant lives. So it's a great summary of Susan's main point. So besides the fact that we only have one planet and we need to have pleasant life in the future, maybe what I would, well, the tip that I can give you is review some grammar, some punctuation rules. First punctuation rule, when you have the word and the word and is joining two independent clauses, that means two different ideas that have their own subject and their own verb. So in this case, the word and is joining our first clause. We only have one planet. That's one idea. It has its own subject, its own verb. And it's also joining the other idea. We need to have pleasant lives. So you have another subject, another verb. When the word and is joining two of those clauses, then you need to place a comma before the word. So we only have one planet, comma, and we need to have pleasant lives in the future. Remember that when we use adjectives, we don't really change the adjective from plural to singular. The adjective stays the same. The noun is what changes from plural to singular, right? So in this case, lives. Perfect. So besides the fact that we only have one planet and we need to have pleasant lives in the future, it is widely known that the planet is now full of trash and we need to improve the recycling as much as possible. Great. I love the fact that it's something new. It's not something, you're not repeating Susan's idea, but you're adding to it. Careful with punctuation. You don't have to use a comma before or between the subject and the object of your sentence. So it is widely known that this is a complement, you don't need a comma there. That the planet is now full of trash, comma, and we need to improve the recycling of materials. Good. So maybe instead of improve the recycling, for sounding better, we could say, and we need to recycle as much as possible. Well done. Now, Alex has a good point when he, in this case, don't forget to change the pronouns. Alex has a good point when he says that having a strong economic growth will solve the environmental problem at some point. Okay, I love that. So it is totally true that Alex said this. Having a strong economic growth will solve the environmental problem at some point. So you did include one of Alex's points that they might eventually develop new technologies that solve environmental problems. So yes, having an economic growth is going to contribute to solving the environmental problem at some point. Good. Now, however, it is important to note that until that economic growth starts, the contamination will be increasing and the solution can be on a long term or too late. Okay, I love the fact that you are directly contrasting and objecting to what Alex said in that point, right? So it has a relationship. It's not like you're talking about something different. You're saying it is true that the economic growth can help the environment, but until that happens, maybe it will be too late. So it's a really good argument to challenge that point. Your grammar is really good. Your punctuation is perfect. Now, for example, if people start to recycle, careful with the conjugations. Remember, people is plural. So if people start to recycle, like changing plastic bags to cloth bags, maybe instead of like, and this is in general for your writing responses, you could say, if people start to recycle, well, you could use other alternatives, right? Maybe such as, but I don't know if that would work here. People start to recycle. Maybe we could say, there's another option, which is IE. So if people start to recycle, IE, which basically means, for example, changing plastic bags to cloth bags, comma, it will help to stop the contamination a little. Okay, good. So remember that with conditional sentences that start with the word if, you need a comma to separate the condition from the result. So this is the condition. If people start to recycle, start changing plastic bags to cloth bags, and then you have the result. This will help to stop the contamination a little, because we always use bags to do shopping, and if we recycle other things, it will help more. Good. Now, one suggestion I can give you, and this is for syntax, maybe this sentence is a little too long. I would not mix a condition, I would not put two conditional sentences in the same sentence. Two conditional clauses in the same sentence. So you have two conditionals here. If people start to recycle, it will help to stop the contamination, and you have another one. And if we recycle other things, it will help more. So I will try to break down this sentence in some way, probably here, right? For grammar, remember that you don't need a comma before the word because, so it will help to stop the contamination a little. Period. We always use bags to do shopping, comma, and if we recycle other things, it will help more. Okay, so this is good. Maybe a little bit vague what other things you could have mentioned, but it's fine. And finally, we have, that's why I feel that taking care of the planet is careful with the grammar. If you're already mentioning the noun, then you don't need to use a pronoun, because the pronoun it replaces the noun. But you already have the noun, you have the subject already. So there's no reason to use the pronoun directly to the verb. That's why I feel that taking care of the planet is a better option to have a better life. Good. Okay, I like it. I like that you're saying it's a better option, but maybe I would try to answer the question even more directly. The question is, would you prioritize economic growth over the environment, or the environment over economic growth? So I would say that's why I feel that taking care of the planet should be prioritized over economic growth, right? Something like that. Something that directly answers the question, okay? But in general, Paula, this is a great response, to be honest. I see that you're not struggling in any specific point of the template element of the structure. Your grammar is really good. You have good vocabulary related to this topic. Your ideas are different and are new, and you are able to elaborate on those ideas as well by giving examples. So great response, Paula. Any questions? Do you guys have any questions, any tips, any comments, anything else that you would maybe add to this response that you would change? Okay. So, Alejandra, what about you? So you didn't get to finish, right? Why was that?
Hello, teacher. I recently arrived from work, and that's why I couldn't finish. So I didn't have all my head was with all those ideas. However, I was trying. I decided to. Well, I was. I I agree with Alex's opinion. So but I was trying to look for another option or another statement that I can add to Alex's opinion. So that's why I was a little without words, thinking about what can I add.
Okay, good. So you were thinking of the reason. To be honest, your reason, I mean, of course, it has to be different to what Alex already said. but it does not have to be that that complex. And if you are struggling, that's what I really suggest, to do an outline before. Like maybe you already wrote a little bit, and then you realize that maybe that reason that you thought about was not too good. So maybe even if you deep down agree with Alex, if you feel that it's a little bit hard to think of a reason to support Alex's opinion, then maybe you can change and go for Susan's opinion, right? And try to think of those things when you're doing the outline. So what could I say to support Alex's opinion? If you can think of a good reason, then maybe try to ask yourself, so is there a reason that I could use for Susan's opinion? If you can, and if you can think of one reason for Susan, then maybe you should go for that option. Right? So try to consider both when you're thinking. Now, in this case, we have, I completely support Alex's opinion. Besides the fact that economic growth will let people create different strategies in order to solve environmental issues. Okay, perfect. You are using one of the main points from Alex's response. Economic growth will someday lead to solving environmental issues, right? Careful with the grammar. Remember that after the expression in order to or just to, you cannot use a gerund, right? It has to be the basic. Okay, so it is widely known that economic growth is a fundamental base. I like the vocabulary fundamental. But again, right, if you're struggling of thinking of a reason, before I wrote any of this, I would have thought about my reason, right? And if you didn't have a reason for Alex's opinion, maybe you could think of a reason for Susan's opinion, right? Because yeah, I do think it's a little bit hard to add something to what Alex already said. Maybe it is easier to support Susan in this case. So think about that before starting to write your response.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, guys, good. So, do you have any questions so far? Any comments?
Where I can find more of this kind of exercise?
Okay, good question. So to be honest, the thing is, since this is such a new question, because it's something that has appeared very recently, I mean, it's not even in the TOEFL test yet. It's just gonna start on July the 26th. So given that it's something so new, there's not a lot of practice available online. And there are not many resources. I can give you guys some links. The ETS has published a PDF with some practice sets. So let me show you. There are not many of them available, not as many as for the integrated or all the other ones. We don't have it in Magoosh yet, but there are a few. So let me see. Okay. So this is the website. It's called TOEFLresources.com. And well, you have a couple of them here. And one thing that I really like is the fact that you have sample responses for each one of them. So I'm gonna send you guys the link. And maybe we can even check a few of them. That's the link. So you have, for example, the one that we did was this one here, economic growth versus the environment, right? But there are more. So you have targeted advertising, social media, grading students. You have a few other sample responses as well. And the good thing is if you go to each one of them, you have a sample answer. So this can help you, like think of ideas and so forth. So that could be one link that I can send you. And well, I don't know if there are more. There was one official from the ETS that I wanted to share. This is the one. No, it's a PDF. Okay. So this is the one official from the ETS. I'm also sending you guys this link, and I think it's really worth checking it out because not only do you have the sample response and the question, but you have response tips. So we're gonna look at those response tips. Now the question that we have here is actually very similar to the one we just wrote, but in this case they say which would you argue is more important, education or environmental protections? So it's between the two of them, and you have the sample, you have the instructions there. Now, if we read the response tips from the ETS, in reality, they say that you could technically say anything you want. So you could agree with one student, agree with Kelly, for example, with the first student. They also say that you could agree with Andrew, the second student. And this is the interesting part. They also say you might find that you agree with a point Kelly made about the environment, even though you think education is more important. Or you might even find that your opinion about government priorities depends on certain factors, that education should be a priority in some circumstances, environmental protections in others. So they basically tell you that technically you could waver between the options. You don't necessarily have to agree with one student or the other. You could argue with both of them. You could say that it depends on the circumstance, it depends on certain factors. So you could do that for this question, which is something that wasn't previously seen in other questions for the TOEFL test. Now, to be honest, I don't suggest that you guys do that because it's not. It would be difficult. It will be more difficult for the reader to understand your main opinion when you don't have a strong position. So it's always easier and safer to go for the strongest position you can think of, supporting one or the other student. They say this is perfectly acceptable as long as you explain and support your reasoning. There's no correct answer to the question. The important part of this is to make sure that you state your opinion and provide a reasonable, relevant support for it in a way that makes a meaningful contribution to the online discussion. So a well-developed response will contain clearly appropriate reasons, examples, and details, right? So you need to elaborate, ones that do a good job supporting or illustrating your own view. So, I mean, you could say whatever you want, you could support whatever opinion you have, but personally, I do suggest that you guys go for one or the other option. I don't think it's a good idea to waver between the two of them because it gets harder to support your point. So that was a clarification that I wanted to make. And they say the quality and accuracy of the sentence structure, vocabulary you use to express your ideas is also very important and part of what is considered when your response is scored. The task context, opposed to an online discussion group, is not quite as informal as you may think. So it is not that informal, right? You still have to use academic language. While the task asks you to contribute to a discussion with fellow students, imagine that the professor will also be reading your post. It is true that your tone might be more casual than what you would use in an academic paper, but you should still follow standard grammar rules. Also, if disagreeing with another student post, be sure to express your disagreement in a respectful way as you would in a real online discussion. So that's why they say. Okay, what do you think about that?
I think that, as you said, it's better if we have a point of view supporting one student idea. It will be easier, and also we will be not confused during that time, that just 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Because yes, it is a limited amount of time that you have, and um, and yeah, there's not much time to actually, because I mean, in the real world, not everything is black and white, right? So when you're actually writing like papers and essays on real topics, then obviously you have to consider a lot of things. And usually in an academic paper, you have your claims and your counterclaims, right? You consider all factors, all things to come to a conclusion. But remember that this is not what we're doing here, right? Here we're just demonstrating that we can write academically, that we can express our ideas and our opinions in a clear, consistent, in a good way, right? And we can support those ideas. So yes, it doesn't have to be something real. It just has to be something that's proving your writing, basically. So yes, you can find some practices in that website that I share with you guys. This one here, TOEFLresources.com. There's another one, Invest My Test as well, but there is just one practice for this one. So I'm also gonna be sending you this because it's a paid website. So if you wanted more practice sets, you would have to subscribe. But I think with the free material available, we can do it. So this is the one. So again, look at this question. It's also about the environment. I don't know why, but I've seen so many about the environment. So the question here says, some people think that human needs for farmland, housing, and industry are more important than saving land for endangered animals. Do you agree or disagree with this point of view? So keep in mind that the questions that you get are actually the same type of questions that you get in the independent writing. So even though, remember that I shared with you guys those sample responses for the independent writing, even though those are not going to be, the questions that you get in this task, the writing for an academic discussion. So if you take the test after July the 26th, technically you won't have any independent questions. But even though those are not the same, that's not the same task, the question on its own is the same. The question types are exactly the same. So reading those essays is going to help you at least at grabbing some vocabulary for some expressions, like for example, the environment, which are really important, and also coming up with ideas, especially if you're having a hard time thinking of ideas, then try to read those sample responses, those sample essays, because you have a lot of ideas for the most common topics that you get in the questions here. So I think the material is also helpful for this question, even though it's not from the same question. So yes, that's another thing. So what do you guys think now? Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments before we go? As I said, I'm going to be sending you an assignment for this question so that everybody who hasn't joined today can also do it. And you get your feedback. But what do you think? Any questions, any comments before we go? Okay, guys, great. So if you don't have any questions, then please don't forget today's daily survey. And I will be seeing you guys next week. I hope you have a great weekend. Okay, guys, thank you so much. See you next class.
Bye.
Bye, Andrea.